Thank you for joining me on another episode of She Leads Now podcast, where we help career and entrepreneurial women gain the tools to develop a success mindset, create winning strategies, build collaborative relationships, and take bold action towards creating impact and fulfillment in their lives and careers. I'm your host, Sabine Gideon, and I'm on a mission to awaken and activate women and emerging leaders so they can tap into their innate leadership ability, elevate their influence, and create the impact they were destined to make. If you're ready to uplevel your confidence, courage, and influence, you've come to the right place. Join me weekly for insights, strategies, and resources to help you grow, develop, and embody the leader you were meant to be, so that you can make the impact you know you are called to make and establish the legacy you've always dreamed. The world eagerly awaits the emergence of your brilliance, impact, and influence. So with that, let's dive into this week's episode. Welcome back to another episode of She Leads Now podcast. I'm your host, Sabine Gideon, and I'm so excited to bring you episode number 4, in which we are going to be focusing on how to leverage your network for hidden opportunities. So before we get started with the content, just have a couple questions for you. Please feel free to do a private head nod since I can't see you and you can't see me if you've heard any of the following statements or sayings. It's not what you know, but who you know. Or better yet, your network equals your net worth. Or maybe you've heard this one. You are the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with or spend the most time with. Now take a moment. Any of those resonate? Have you heard any of those? Have you read any of those in any articles? If you have, I'm wondering if you notice a theme here. What are these statements really getting at? And what can you learn and take away from these messages? While you think on that, I'll tell you what they mean to me. In short, relationships matter. And not only do they matter, but the right relationships can open doors for you. So how do you go about building these meaningful connections that lead to opportunities? Well, I am glad you asked, even though technically you didn't, but I'm going to assume that you asked. Let's look at what is effective networking versus ineffective networking. Before we get started, let me just put this out here. I know that the word networking can have a negative connotation or bring up all types of feelings and discomfort, or maybe even dis-ease for some. So instead of networking, let's call it connection building for the purposes of this particular episode and to ensure that I am not triggering anyone when they hear networking. Although I will warn you, I may use the word networking just because it's so much more of a common term, but the focus of this is really around connection building. The reason why I'm making the shift in the terminology is really because at the end of the day, networking really is and should be about building connections. When it comes to networking specifically, we're taught at some point that you should have the 60-second elevator speech that you can say really quickly to introduce yourself as it relates to what you do, as it relates to your skills or your business, when you attend a networking event or when you meet someone in the elevator or whatever, right? When we think about connection building or building connections, it goes far beyond a 60-second elevator speech. Or for my business owners who were taught the formula of I help X do Y so that they can do Z, that's not what we're talking about today. We're not talking about the 60-second elevator speech, and we're not talking about your niche statement or who you help statement. What I'm referring to requires intentionality, commitment, and consistency. So piggybacking off of the previous episodes around career transitions, imagine you're at that place where you're thinking about shifting into something completely different, but not sure where to start or even if it's 100% right for you. Sure, you could Google it, and I highly recommend Googling and researching what others have to say or have written about the field. But how much more helpful or powerful would it be if you could reach out to someone in your network doing the job or working in that field to learn about their journey, lessons learned, pitfalls, growth opportunities, etc. And better yet, what if said person had other connections or influence over decision makers that could either one, get you an informational interview, or two, get you an actual interview for the opportunity that you were considering. That's literally hours worth of research or even months saved from you having to feel like you have to get a certificate or additional training. Not that anything is wrong with these. However, in this particular case, when you're looking to make this move, if it's something you haven't done before, we can fall into the trap of thinking that I got to get certified. I got to get all this credibility before I can even be looked at or considered for an opportunity. And what I'm presenting to you here is no, you don't. You can build the right network and build the right connections that could help you bypass that. Now, if you want to get the certifications, if you want to do all that, by all means, please do that. Like self-development, I'm all for that. I am here for it. But this is to shatter that belief that sometimes we have that in order to do something new, we have to put in all this extra work ahead of time just to qualify for it. So going back and thinking about our scenario, can you imagine how much different your life would be if when you needed something, all you had to do was pick up the phone or send an email and a new connection, some advice, some direction would be made available to you? And so as you sit with that, imagine life without the hustle. Imagine not having to, put in hours, months, whatever, years of research and hard work to prove yourself. That literally you could pick up the phone or, like I said, send an email and get access to the information or the people that you need. How much more different would your life be? How much easier would things be for you? How much more willing would you be to make changes or to take the leap if you knew that you had that level of support backing you? Well, friends, that is literally the power of building connections intentionally and consistently. So now that you're ready to let go of all of the hours of hard work and research and all that other stuff. And again, I'm not saying don't do those things, but I'm offering you an option that can help you bypass how much of those things that you have to do. So where do you begin? Start with your goals. What are you looking to achieve now or in the next 3 to 6 months? Now, I know we are in an ever-changing era where we literally have no control, and we are very conscious of the fact that we have no control over what happens. But if you know that 2022 or whatever year it is that you're listening to this episode, if this year is going to be the year that you make a major shift in your life, in your career, in your business, what do you want to accomplish or what do you want to achieve in that particular area? Once you've identified 3 to 6 month goals, whether it be career, business, or your personal life, take a step back rather than just jumping full in or both feet together in terms of putting together a plan and putting together a strategy and all the things that you're going to do and all the tasks that you have to do. Before you do that, I invite you to take a step back and assess your network. Who do you know that can open the door for you? Or who do you know that is in your immediate network that you can have a conversation with? Or who can introduce you to a decision maker? Or even guide you in the first couple of steps? Something that I just experienced recently. At the end of 2021, I launched She Leads Network, which is growing. And I really enjoy the opportunity to be able to support the development and the growth of the women that are part of the network now and who will, continue to join the network. But I also realized that I need to change my methods, or I need to accelerate my methods in terms of marketing so that more people know about She Leads Network and more people will be excited to join the network. Now, an older version of me would have been literally pounding the pavement, spending all this money on marketing, going overboard. There's a time and a place for that. But what I did a little differently at the top of this year is I did an audit of who I have in my network, of who I knew that I could reach out for some support and some guidance. And so I ended up reaching out to individuals in my network who have access to this amazing network of other founders, of other investors, of mentors, and all of these things. And so I reached out and said, hey, I'm looking for some guidance or some direction on what you've seen that has worked when someone has launched something new that you could recommend to me. And I kid you not, I got this email back of so many resources, an offer to really sit with me to think through my strategy, an offer to introduce me to individuals who might, be able to support me even further. It was so much more than I even expected. But had I just gone in with the mindset of, oh my gosh, I got to ramp up my marketing, I got to do this, I got to do that, I would have lost out on the opportunity to get exposed or to gain access to their entire network. So hopefully that example brings it to life of why I think it's so important that we leverage our network in addition to doing the work. So set your goals, as I did with She Leads Network. Assess who's in your network, who can support you, as I did with these individuals that I just mentioned, and then reach out. So before you reach out, one thing that I want to make clear here is that you don't want to reach out in this space of what can you do for me? Because that's not healthy relationship building. And really people don't respond as well to that. While people may be very well meaning and they want to help you, you want to approach individuals when you're looking for something like this with what's in it for them. What do they have on their plates? What are their priorities? Have they shifted gears? Maybe what you knew them for or what they did when you first met them or when you first came into relationship with them is completely different. Have they moved? Have they started a family? What can you find out ahead of time to build some rapport so that when you reach out, it's not just, hey, help me. It's more so, hey, I see that you've experienced this. Congratulations. Or I read about you in this article. It's so amazing the things that you're doing. So you build rapport and you really show them that you have an interest in them. And then you can prepare something ahead of time based on your research. What do you have to give to them? Or what are you willing to offer? I'm a very big advocate for, whenever you have an ask, you better make sure that you have a give as well. And so I'll say that again, whenever you have an ask, whether that is of your network, whoever it is, make sure that you also have a give. So if you've taken the time and you've done some research, you've identified, hey, this is what they're working on, this is what they're focused on, these are some of the changes that they've experienced, you can then take that information and think through, well, how can I support them? How can I help them? And maybe at first, you may not have something that comes immediately to mind. But as you start the conversation of, hey, I noticed this, or it looks like you've shifted into this, tell me more about that. You invite them or you create the space for them to tell you a little bit more about what's going on behind the scenes and ways that you could potentially connect and support them. The next step would be connecting, actually connecting. And again, you make the conversation about them. Listen to what's going on in their life. Listen to what's new. Ask questions. Come at it from a place of curiosity to get a better idea of what they're working on or might be thinking about tackling next. As you listen, take notes. Who do you know that might be able to help them based on what you've heard? So again, you're going in from this place of, I am here to support you just as much as I am here to ask of your support of me. Once you've connected, once you've gained some better understanding of what their priorities are or how you may be able to support with a give, then you make your ask. At that point, this is pretty self-explanatory, right? You've identified what your goals are. You've identified how they could potentially help you. You've done the research to understand how you could potentially help them. Now is the opportunity to make your specific ask. And guess what? Even if you've done the research and the pre-work, and you think that they can help you. When you get into the conversation, they're not in that position to support you right away, or they need some time to work some things out through their network to get back to you. That would be the time where you ask to set up a follow-up call. This would be the date when you reach back out to check in. I'll use my example. Let's just say when I reached out to my network for the support that I mentioned earlier, they didn't have a list of people that they could immediately recommend me to, or they needed time to get resources together. My response would have been, thank you so much. I really appreciate you looking into this for me. What is a great date for me to follow back up with you? Or, you can ask flat out, would it be okay if I check back in 2 weeks? So it's okay if when you reach out to individuals, they don't have that information readily available. But if they say that they're going to look into it, then you identify a time that the two of you can reconnect, or however many people can reconnect to talk about next steps. At that point, that's when you would offer the support. First, ask, how can you reciprocate? Because in the beginning, as I shared, right, you're listening, you're making notes, you're doing research. You already have something in mind of what you can give. But it never hurts to ask, to ensure that what you have in mind is actually what's going to help support them. So at that point, you can say, hey, I'd love to support you as well. What can I assist you with? Sometimes what they need may not be something that you can help support, and that's okay. I don't want you feeling like, oh my gosh, I don't have anything for this person, or if they ask me for something that I can't support them with, then I'm going to look, I'm going to look bad, or I'm going to look like a jerk. It's completely okay to say, give me some time to look through my network, or look through my mental Rolodex, or whatever you want to call it, and identify how I can best support you. A perfect example, I had that recently with someone that I connected with, and they were looking to buy a particular kind of company. I don't have anyone in my network or immediate network who I could refer them to help support that ask. However, I did have a connection that I believed would have the connections that that person needed. So it was really more of a third party, if you will, or 2 to 3 connections removed that could help support them. And so I wasn't able to support the immediate ask or the immediate need, but I was able to refer them to someone who could refer them to someone who could support that need. So I hope that makes sense. We're like, it's 6 steps in of just building a relationship, or building a connection, or leveraging your connection to open up a new door. And as you can see, it is a lot different than, hey, I'm going to go to an event, or I'm going to get on a Zoom and I'm going to give my 60-second speech, and bam, that's a person in my network. It honestly, it just doesn't work that way. And especially in this very remote time that we're in, it's okay to go to those events. It's okay to have your 60-second elevator speech, but then taking that next step of identifying individuals during those events to say, hey, I would love to get to know this person. And you don't even have to have an ask right in that moment, but just getting to know them, getting to know their background. I can't tell you how many doors have opened up for me simply because I was coming from a place of curiosity and I wanted to get to know someone and what it is that they do. So with this approach, you create a win-win for both parties, for both you and the other person. And you'll end up leaving that conversation feeling like, you've been supported, as well as you've been able to support someone else. So I'm going to do a really, really quick recap on the steps here. So if you're looking to really advance into something new, or if you're looking to just up your connection building game, start with your goals. What do you want to achieve in the short term? Then who in your network can help support you in achieving that, or at least bring you closer to being able to achieve that? Reach out to them, but at the same time, do your research, understand what shifts, what changes have occurred in their life. What are their priorities? How can you possibly support them? And once you connect, again, connect with the intention of really understanding what's going on in their lives. And then when the opportunity presents itself, make your ask and allow them the room and the space to think through how they can best support you. and then reciprocate that by asking them, how can you support them? Again, if you don't have something immediately that you can offer, that's quite okay. You can let them know that. Or if you need some time to do some research, you can let them know that as well. Do your research and get back to them. At the end of the day, if you don't remember anything else, please remember this. Your network is invaluable. So you want to make sure that every time you connect with someone, every time you reach out to someone, that you are cherishing that relationship, that you are not treating it like a transaction, that you are actually going in with the mindset that this is another human being and this is someone who I want to support and this is someone who I would like to support me. Your network and your connections are everything, regardless of whether or not you are in a traditional work environment or you are an entrepreneur. Like, you need your network. You need your network like nobody's business. Be intentional on who you reach out to and why you're reaching out to them. Again, what are you going to offer them? What are the next steps? Schedule your follow-up. And something that I also want to add here is I would encourage you to create a cadence that allows you to touch base with people on a regular basis. So what do I mean by that? Rather than reaching out to people when you need something. So even if you go through this whole process and, Sally, I'll just use that name for example, offers to help you, offers to support you, you support her, and you two go on your way. Don't let that be it with Sally. Create some type of process where you can touch base with Sally in 6 months. Hey, Sally, how did X go? Or whatever it was that you did to support her, or give her an update on how her opening the door for you or her supporting you has actually impacted you. So you want to make sure that you are maintaining the relationships. It's not just the initial outreach for support, but that you have something in place that allows you to keep in touch with that person, because again, you never know when you'll need Sally's help or when Sally will need your help. And so you definitely want to make relationship building and these connections reciprocal. You want to make sure that you are adding just as much value as you are asking for in return. And it's something that you incorporate in every area of your life, not just professionally, but personally as well. Well, that is all that I have for you for today's episode. If you haven't already downloaded the micro habits workbook that I created, it'll really help you identify some of the micro habits that you need to begin to put in place that will support you in taking action towards your goals. You could get a copy of that at SabineGideon.com/habits. I look forward to chatting with you again soon. Have a great rest of the week. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of She Leads Now. Be sure to join us next week for another transformative discussion to help you grow, develop, and embody the courageous leader you've always been. Be sure to subscribe to the show to get alerts when new episodes drop, and join us for our next Leaders Lounge meetup on Zoom. Details and dates for future sessions are included in the show notes below, so take a look there or head over to SabineGideon.com/lounge to register and hold your spot for the next session. Again, that's SabineGideon.com/lounge to grab your spot. Excited to connect with you all inside the lounge. Talk to you soon.